year for Thanksgiving on episode 54, we highlighted the influence of North America's indigenous peoples on the founding of the U.S. and its systems and principles. And I urge all of our viewers and listeners to check out that episode to learn more about how Native Americans really shaped the American ideals you all have come to know and love. This year, what I'm going to try and do is I want to continue giving thanks where thanks is due by highlighting contributions made by indigenous peoples. But this time I want to focus on how African indigenous knowledge helped shape modern medicine in the U.S. Okay. So the year is 1721 and smallpox is ravaging Boston. Eventually, half of the city's 11,000 inhabitants are infected and 850 lives lost. Now, many survived smallpox thanks to inoculation. Specifically for smallpox, inoculation is called variolation. Why variolation, you might ask? Well, smallpox is called the variola virus. For those of you that don't know, inoculation is a method of infecting individuals with small amounts of smallpox, pus, through cuts in the skin and nasal inhalation. I'm going to be honest, the nasal inhalation bit was new to me. I was a little bit grossed out, and that's probably the last time you'll ever hear me say it.
Okay.
So for some history buffs or people who just remember random stuff, this story, smallpox Boston, might sound familiar. And you might say, if you're that savvy, hey, didn't Cotton Mather introduce inoculation to the colonies? Well, I'll let you be the judge. New England Puritan preacher that seemingly gave his support to the Salem witch trials was also a great promoter of inoculations. Mather was largely responsible for colonial adoption of inoculation, even in the face of fierce anti-vaxxers who, on a November day, maybe just like today, in 1721, threw a small bomb at him. And they often debated saying smallpox was God's will.
Wow.
Sounds vaguely familiar to what we've heard in the past couple of years.
It does. Sounds like we haven't really changed much.
But inoculation was not his idea.
Okay.
History books got it wrong. The honor of introducing inoculation to the colonies goes to a slave named Onesimus. Onesimus was not publicly credited for his role in saving countless lives and was subsequently omitted from medical histories for centuries. Don't believe me? Centuries, you say? Well, in 1932, during a speech to the Massachusetts Medical Society, Dr. Woodward, co-founder of the American Psychiatric Association, said that the idea of variolation, quote, came then from Cotton Mather and came from Cotton Mather only, end quote.
Okay.
It was only through Mather's own diary that we know the truth, where he wrote, quote, he told me that he had undergone the operation which had given something of the smallpox and would forever preserve him from it, adding that was often used in West Africa, end quote.
Okay.
So Mather then confirmed this with a few other slaves. This whole inoculation process was a thing for real. They confirmed. Then he read up on it, similar methods being used in Turkey. And then he was off saving lives and taking all the credit.
Yeah.
Side note, variolation treatments were also active in Turkey, China, India by 1721. And Great Britain learned of the medical therapy from Turkey. So I imagine there are several Africans with this indigenous knowledge that have gone unacknowledged for their critical contribution to sharing medical treatments with the world.
Right. Indigenous knowledge from Africa. Right.
You got it.
Yeah.
So Onesimus's knowledge of smallpox treatments led to one of the first known inoculation campaigns in American history. And I can only imagine that racism is at the core of why more people don't know his name today. The PBS article that I'm mainly sourcing this from mentioned something that I did not know, but it is interesting. In contrast to math and reading, there are no nationally agreed upon standards for teaching social studies in United States history. That means that every state teaches the history of slavery differently. And what public schools, school students do learn is largely influenced by where they grow up. I did not know that. According to Professor Roberts, a historian at Yale University who researches medicine and slavery in the Atlantic world, said one of the things I hear frequently from undergraduate students is that they feel lied to. They want to know why they didn't learn about this history earlier and the different influences and people who contributed to science. Again, I think the answer is racism.
Yeah.
And
It's not hard.
it's bolstered by an underfunded K through 12 system.
Yeah.
And in fact, the Southern Poverty Law Center examined 12 widely used U.S. history books and surveyed nearly 2,000 history teachers and 1,000 high school seniors, 12th graders, for those wondering that aren't familiar with K through 12, and found
give
that
the age for people who are who are not
17 years old,
yes,
18 years old,
from like 14 to is what we're talking about. Well, K5 to 17 or 18.
Yeah.
What we're talking about.
So the later stages of that, right? So by the time they're done with this, they still don't get it. And
right.
After surveying all those folks, they found and evaluating the books, they found that an 800-page textbook devoted 20 pages to slavery in the context of a backward economic model and why we had a civil war. And that's appalling, given its gravity, foundations to the country, and reverberating effects we're still experiencing today. Yeah, man, to chalk it up to an alternative means of production just seems disingenuous. So I'll say this, it's not new. Our teachers are unequipped to inform our students, fund the research and development and administration of our schools. And I'll close by saying that there are no images or monuments of Onesimus that exist in public record. So let the story be known far and wide by telling someone this holiday season what you heard today. You can cite the PBS article and some other sources that we'll include in the description of this YouTube episode. And you can certainly share this episode with them. But that is the story of Onesimus. Remember that name, Onesimus.
That's cool.